a lot of things that stem from fear that is unchecked in our hearts.
Yeah.
I remember meeting one time in Arizona. We were doing a conference down there, and a man came from ministry, and he asked me to lay hands on him. He put his hands out, and he asked me to lay hands on him to go so that he could go back to the hotel room and lay hands on his wife that she might be healed.
Okay.
He said that she was, and he said, this is just a simple healing story. And that's what I thought. And he said, well, you know, you don't understand. She's in bed in the hotel room because she's incapacitated. She's bedbound. She's unable to come down to the meeting and receive prayer.
I remember this, yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to lay your hands on me so that the power of God's in me so I can go lay hands on my wife in her bed.
If that's how he was believing,
that's how he was
wanted
believing,
to receive,
right?
Yeah.
And so as I went to lay my hands on him, the Holy Spirit just checked me and said, hang on a second, there's more to this than what you're seeing. And he revealed to me that this man was just in fear. He was afraid. He was the main carer for his wife. And he was just in fear of losing her. You know, he loved his wife so deeply. And I think we see that a lot in ministry situations. You know, we forget that there's a family caring for somebody that's sick. There's a lot of fear just in the natural environment of the consequences and of the outcome. And so as I went to lay hands on him, I realized that there was a problem with fear. And I said that to him. I said, you know, what I'm picking up, what I'm sensing when I'm looking at you. And actually, as I started looking in his eyes, I could see it in his face.
See the fear.
You can see fear in people, even if they don't say anything. And so I just spoke the peace of God over him that counteract that fear. And it's almost like you could see his body relaxing. He was like, you know, you could see him just becoming at peace.
Right.
And then really, I don't even really remember doing much beyond that. So he went away happy anyway. And I thought nothing of it. There was lots of ministry going on, praying for lots of people. Well, that evening, I met that man again. And he looked so different. You know, his countenance had completely changed. He just had peace. Peace was operating in his body. And a peace is the antidote to fear. If we're in fear, we're not in peace, right? They're like opposites.
Yeah.
And so as he came back, I didn't recognize him initially. And he was with a woman. And he said, you don't recognize me. He kind of called me out. You don't recognize me, do you? And I'm like, no, I mean, he looks so different.
Wow.
And I said, he said, you prayed for me this morning, you know, with the fear. I'm like, oh, now I remember. He says, well, I want to introduce you to somebody. And so as he carried on, he said, I want you to introduce you to my wife. I'm starting to think to myself, is this the same lady that we were talking about that was bedbound? And as he started to tell me the whole story, he said, as I went back up to my hotel room, I was in the elevator, and the power of God hit my wife in her bed.
Wow.
I didn't even know God could do stuff like this, right? The power of God hit my wife in her bed. And all of her symptoms left. By the time he got up to the hotel room, she was out of bed. She was getting into the shower by herself. All of her pain left. All of her symptoms left. All of her mobility returned.
Wow.
You know, and I'm like, wow, what just happened? And the Lord showed me that fear had kept this lady in bondage. You see, she had been trying to, she wanted to believe God. As she started to explain, she wanted to believe God and wean herself off the medication and start taking some steps in faith. But so afraid of losing her was her husband that his fear was actually keeping her in bondage. You know, I'm a big believer that sympathy will kill you.
Right.
And you know, we don't need people around us to be in sympathy. And it's really, really difficult when it's our loved ones. They love us so much. They're almost loving us to death.
Right.
You know, but he loved his wife so much. He was so desperately afraid of losing her that she felt it was actually hindering her from stepping out in faith. And they didn't even realize the dynamic that was going on there. But the minute that fear was broken in his life, the power of God flowed as she received her healing.
Wow.
I mean, that kind of, to me, that really took God out of a box.
Right.
I didn't even know that was even a dynamic that could happen.
Thank you.